Friends, welcome into another edition of the Soccer Tejas podcast. It's the one and only. No one else has it, and I don't think anyone else wants it necessarily. I'm Alex Parra. It's always great to be with you. Starting off, I guess, the week of 16th, 17th of March. Can't believe we're halfway through March. By the way, today is, and I'm not wearing any green, St. Patrick's Day.
Not that we can see it, nor do we need to have confirmation.
Someone is wearing it. There you go. Another excuse to have a pint or two or 12. So we don't need excuses necessarily. Anyway, a lot to talk about. Thanks to all of you that join us. You heard him already. I guess he's in the green spirit. There you go. We welcome in Victor Araiza. Victor, happy St. Patty's. What's in the cup? That's what I want to know. What are you drinking?
Let's just call it a
green.
A St. Patrick's special.
The St. Patty's Day special. Victor, how are you this evening, morning, noon, night, depending on how and where you're digesting this podcast? How are you, sir?
Doing well. Obviously, again, sometimes soccer, and not just Houston, but in this country, kind of brings up the need to drink. So if you feel that way, you've come to the right place, I think, to sort of drown your sorrows.
I'm not much of a drinker, Victor, but maybe we should have a podcast. A lot of shows now allow alcohol, right, on the set, or since this isn't regulated, you could smoke.
Yeah, but
drink.
We're not sponsored by any brand, so I mean, if anybody would like to,
we'll take up the drinking.
That would change probably the format, and
or maybe
you might have to drink.
Or maybe some gummies. I hear these gummies can really make you very happy and relaxed too, Victor. I don't know if you've consumed gummies.
Yeah. Well,
no, he didn't say no.
That would change the show as well.
The rhythm of the show. Why are we 3 hours into this, Victor? We haven't said anything. Wow, what a great podcast.
Yeah, man, that bogus goal, man.
Let's watch it again. A lot to talk about, Victor. It's always great to be with you. We are just kind of ramping up the MLS season. Yes, we'll start off talking about week 4, match day 4 of MLS season. And Victor, the Houston Dynamo back home after a postponement versus New England because of pitch conditions. Something strange and rare and weird. And I don't think there was too much of a deep dive into it. I heard at least two different versions.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but I heard different versions. Yeah. There was a version about the weather. At this day and age, with everything that's going on, everyone can read whatever they want into it. But I think just it wasn't played, and it played a little bit of havoc in your natural preparation. But Ben Olsen and his team were ready to take it on. Again, they had some problems early on, Victor. But what a way from Houston to pick up a victory.
Yeah, I thought it was a bit of a blessing not to play that New England game because you save that away trip for later on in the year when I think they have a little bit of a break anyways. And look, New England beat Cincinnati 6-1 at home. So maybe they might have dodged the bullet there.
Yeah.
You get another home game here. We talked about it last week. I thought this was a winnable game. It may not have gone the way they would have liked to have. The ups and downs of this game, I thought weren't necessary because, again, I thought Houston could have probably came out a little bit more aggressive in the first half, put this game away. I think they let Portland in a little more than they needed to, conceded the ball possession a little too much. And then these are the moments, unfortunately, they're going to get the attention of, a penalty for Portland. There was contact, but I know people feel slighted by the ref. I believe there was another play on the other end of the field right before this that Dynamo players wanted a penalty called, so that also plays into it. And then Ben Olsen obviously letting his voice heard to the fourth official, to the referees,
to everyone who would listen.
Yeah, and I don't think that necessarily helps the team. I don't think this attitude of the players kind of feeling hard done helps the team. Bond, again, magnificent, but, there's nobody there that cleans up the play, and that's what ended up giving Portland the first goal.
Yeah, Guerra, local kid from Houston who played in the Dynamo academy system, was following up on the ball, and kids, that's the way you follow a penalty kick, and put it in the back of the net. But Houston weren't done, and they came out. The team came out, Victor, with energy in the second half. Again, maybe forced to do that, and you started seeing the buildup. Guilherme with the goal to tie the match.
Yeah, I think forced.
Yeah.
That to me, that's what I'm saying. You see these kinds of plays, these kinds of goals from the Houston Dynamo, and it's like, why don't you just do that from the beginning, right? Why have to be lured out that way? And listen, Andrade, he surprised me because I didn't, I know some people like him. I think he's left much more to be desired. And look, on this play here, he scored the goal, and Portland ties it back. But at this point, you're 2-2. The way the first half again sort of happened, you're thinking here, well, at least you're going to rescue a goal at home.
Yeah, it felt like a letdown, to be honest with you. It felt like a disappointment at 2-2, and then there was this
and
contact
there's this play here.
Yeah. There was, and literally you could see the blood streaming. The goalkeeper Pantemis for Portland down, and this added some time, and it extended then. But Houston again, a second game in a row. This is now the third red card in 2 matches. You could see the left foot going high. Yeah,
because I mean, come on. Yeah, we saw the blood. Also, it didn't get shown on the highlights, but that was too risky of a play from Marcanic. Right. And I know he's got experience, or he's coming from a Spanish team. Again, I want to see more out of this kid because it's not, I don't see the reason they signed him yet. He might have scored a bunch of goals before, but plays like this don't necessarily leave a good impression. Well, and then you leave your team down without one.
But then here, Jack McGlynn, look at this pass. And of course, Mati Bogusz with calm, cool, collected finish. I mean, that's huge. Welcome to the Houston Dynamo, Bogusz.
And that's why you brought him. And he's capable of these types of plays. I thought he, once he had that space, you kind of felt, all right, he's probably going to get it. The only reason because he's had other opportunities where, he might have hit it late. He didn't get the exact space, but right here, when he won it, you kind of felt he's got to put this away. And that's why, again, we talk about that's why you want players of this kind of quality on your team. It's different from what a Ponce can bring, and it might be different from Guilherme just because of the age, right? Also, what he's done already in MLS. So, I think, this is what they were lacking last year. These are the types of players they were lacking last year. That good. You finally rectified this for this season. And I think, again, now my only thing here is, just like I've said with Guilherme, are we going to be able to see this consistently, or our team's going to start figuring out these players out, and is it going to be, one goal every, sporadic thing, one goal every 5-6 games or something like that? And I know they can't score every game, but you want to have some consistency here with some of these big money players. And hopefully I think you can start seeing some of this with Bogusz.
3 games in for Houston, match day 4, as we mentioned, Victor. Let's talk about a couple of, we'll look at the standings here shortly. But let's talk about the attendance. It was down from the previous game versus LAFC. Not a complete sellout. It was rodeo night. How do you see the following of the team? There were a lot of things going on that Saturday evening in Houston, from the rodeo itself down by NRG, all kinds of spring break events. It was also busy, difficult with the traffic. Are all these factors contributing to maybe not having more sellouts, and maybe, bringing in Portland, not a sexy team like LAFC?
I think that's
how do we increase the attendance?
I think that's probably it right there. I think the fact that there's not, the big star power there. We didn't know if Herrera was going to, he's probably as big of a star that you have on the Houston Dynamo. I don't think Because again, this is where you have to start build a bogus. You have to tell the rest of Houston
Sure.
who he is. Not everybody follows MLS. Not everybody follows Cruz Azul, and it's not like he got a lot of great moments in Cruz Azul. So even those who follow Liga MX might not know who he is, right? Not a lot of people. There's a sector of the population here that follows the Brazilian league. So maybe you got to market Guilherme a little bit more. And the other Brazilians as well. So that's why I think, they got to put the machine behind this team, build more stars, put their faces out everywhere they can. There's a mural outside the stadium. I guess that has to do with another mural in the city. I know it's a nice little message, but man, I want to see, just like the Astros, just like the Rockets, the Texans, I want to see banners. I want to see murals outside the stadium that show you who the stars of these teams are. I guess that's not the marketing plan in this organization, but I think all these elements help. And then, even in LAFC, in that game, you saw some of the middle seats sort of empty, and it gives that, on TV at least, it gives that impression that there's not a lot of people there. I know it's these premium areas. Hopefully they're getting the return, the money wise, that that they're charging for these areas, and hopefully it's worth having empty seats on TV, because I think that's also the other end of the coin here with, you got to make money, but it's kind of like what Major League Baseball has going on right now, right? The World Baseball Classic,
literally across the street.
Atmosphere. You have a different atmospheres than you have during the baseball season. And there's different things there with the national pride, but I think, ultimately it's entertainment. People want to come and get entertained. They want to be invested. They want to feel a tie. And I think when they feel a tie emotionally to some of these stars, to some of these, look, Mexico sold out all this merchandise at not Minute Park anymore, Daikin Park. So I think when you make people care, they're willing to, let go of their hard-earned money and kind of let themselves be lost in the drama. And especially in this game, you had some of that drama. You had a great ending. And these are the kind of moments that you want to, catapult off and continue to bring people back and make them lifelong fans.
You couldn't have scripted it any better for Houston, in spite of the red card, in spite of being down by a player. What an amazing finish. And again, I was blessed to call that goal, and it truly was thrilling. It was gutsy. It was emotional. And I think the people that were in attendance, Victor, left fulfilled. I think it was very entertaining. Now, you can't guarantee that every game, but going back,
I think you can guarantee some of those elements. Like every word you just used, Alex, that's soccer. That's why we fell in love with the game. That's the passion that goes with it.
Yeah.
And I think too many times, that's why I don't like this type of playing style where it's overly conservative, because I think you're trying to control too much. You're trying to overly script something that's just has to flow naturally. Let the players dictate the pace of the game. You saw an impact of Victor Araiza there. I don't know why. That's coach's decision, and ultimately it worked out here. But I think that's a guy that can help you from the beginning. Some of these other players that you're starting to see go into their form. Others, I still think, are leaving a lot to be left there. But I think ultimately that feeling, these moments, that's what you got to market. That's what you got to sell. And I think you can't sort of guarantee that every game. That's just a personal goal that you're going to have to go out there and say, look, we're here to entertain. We're here to win. And both can be done. And I think, again, that's how you make lifelong fans. That's how they did it in the Robertson days.
They did. It was a passion. It was a family. It was that emotion that in great part brought fans to Phil Robertson. The winning helped. Let's talk about the product on the field, Victor, because you and I had this conversation a few days ago, just in catching up with each other. I felt and I saw. And in full disclosure, I did not watch every single Dynamo match last season, home and away. I caught most of them, but I saw an approach to playing and you and I agreed and disagreed with this, I believe, more direct play, more longer balls, and not at the last minute like McGlynn to Bogusz for the win, but throughout the game, often because of necessity versus by design. But I saw less of the Rondo type approach to let's just keep possession for 13 minutes straight until we find an opening in between lines so we can create a great partnership and create advantage of a man so we can shoot. Almost too robotic, right? You mentioned now the liberty. We all saw the difference Hector Herrera made when he came into this game, almost instantly changing the pace and the feel and making Houston more dangerous. But it was less scripted. Am I wrong in my assessment, Victor? You and I discussed this, that more direct balls were occurring versus possession for the sake of possession.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that as a criticism. It's a strategy.
And find the result.
Yeah.
I think it's because you had to go out and get the result. And, and that's happened in years past. That's why I've always, advocated for more direct soccer, more attacking soccer. Because I think it can be done. It should be. I think it should be a necessity if you're trying to win people over and you're trying to make this entertainment and you're trying to get that stadium filled.
Right.
Again, Hector Herrera is not he's not coming back from an injury. He's not a guy you have to slowly bring along. And listen, with his career, I don't know how many full years he's going to have left. I mean, he had a free year actually last year because I think he kind of had, rode the bench there at Toluca more than he would have liked.
Sure.
But that's because, there were players on Toluca that, there's reasons to bench an Hector Herrera. Here, I'm sorry, you don't have players good enough to bench Hector Herrera. I think Hector Herrera is one of the 11 best players on this team. And again, everything else he brings for you, the organization, the motivation, the experience. To me, I don't, and I'm not saying he's a 90-minute player either.
I was just going to ask you, is he 90-minute player or should he start and come out in the 65th, 70th minute?
I don't think he's going to go 90 minutes every game, but you don't need him to go 90 minutes every game. But I think for the most part of the season, I don't see a reason. I don't see anybody else on this team that's good enough to bench him. And my other quirk with this is Jack McGlynn. I'm not necessarily a fan of him in that position. They had gone out wide with him. And look, I think the proof, he's not in the latest U.S. men's national team call-up sheet. And I think it was going to be hard anyways. One, coming back from the injury. Two, being in a team like the Houston Dynamo that doesn't get as much media attention, that doesn't get a lot of the spotlight nationally.
Yeah.
I think it helped him that he was on the East Coast with Philadelphia, and some people know him already as far as his World Cup hopes. But I think if Jack McGlynn wants to go to the World Cup, he needs to have the best 2 months of his life in this next stretch. Otherwise, he's not going. And I don't know if the Dynamo care. Maybe they're just thinking of,
I'm sure we're
going to put Jack McGlynn in the best position that to help the Houston Dynamo. But I don't know if putting him in that position necessarily gets the best out of Jack McGlynn. And again, I think you can put your 11 best players on the field and you can modify. You're not married to this 5 at the back. Certainly not because you had no problem shipping out Griffin Dorsey after you already prepared with him. So things can be modified. And I think, I'd like to see a better version of the Houston Dynamo. I'd like to see them go for it more so than experimenting.
Sure. Now, Victor,
I don't think we'll see it.
Forgive me, sir. The wingbacks on both sides right now are serving that purpose. Yes, getting back, but Holmes, to me, it hasn't been too shabby. What we've seen from him, I think he keeps improving from game 1 to now game 3. There's been improvement. It's still early in the season. We're seeing flashes. We're seeing moments.
The other question is he the long-term solution? Is that what they're planning on doing for the rest of the year? Or is he just a placeholder until you get a replacement for Griffin Dorsey? I think it's probably he's there to stay.
Aliyu Ibrahim just came back, Victor, and he can serve in that role. Potentially that's someone. He got a few minutes in against Portland that potentially could serve in that area. I think there's still some. Look, having options at this point in time in the season is a good thing, and the puzzle needs to be coming together. You're not always going to find the 105th minute, right? 105th minute winner.
Yeah, the late winner.
Yeah, the late winner. So a little bit of luck goes into that. But also there's been, arguably, Victor, the referees and 3 red cards in 2 consecutive matches affects the situation. Obviously, this one didn't because it was deep into the match itself. Let me go back to one thing, Victor, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the on-field product. You mentioned Jack McGlynn. You mentioned earlier, hey, beautiful finish by Bogusz. Do people know who Bogusz is? Do people know that he's in Houston? Maybe many don't. Here's the question, Victor. Who is your marketing face? Who is your marketing? Who do you want to put out there as synonymous with the name? I mean, these are questions that I'm sure the organization's asking themselves. I think on the Spanish language side, it's Hector Herrera, right? People need to know he's back. People need to know.
Yeah, well, I think you have several. Or I mean, if you're making me pick one, then I think you probably start with Jack McGlynn.
I'm not limiting you, sir.
But I think there's several. I think you probably have I don't know, 4 or 5 pillars, and that's certainly the guys that could potentially be your stars. Jack McGlynn, Hector Herrera, obviously Mateus Bogusz.
Yeah.
The way he started the season, probably Guilherme.
Yeah.
And then Jonathan Bond has certainly done enough as well to be in that conversation, maybe even over Guilherme if you're just trying to narrow it to 4. So, yeah, I think you can market all of these players. I think you can make stars out of them, tell their stories. It doesn't have to stop with just these 5, but I think certainly those are the ones that could carry you throughout the season. And each one, I think, has a certain, selling point. Right. Again, if McGlynn can be in the World Cup picture for the United States, Herrera's not going to the World Cup, but he's been there with Mexico in important moments, and that's something you can still build off of.
Sure.
Bogusz is fighting to get to the World Cup. We'll find out at the end of this month if he's going, maybe even if he's coming here or staying here with Poland. And the same thing, Guilherme and his tie to Santos in Brazil. I think it's all on the table. They got to get after it. But, they got to do their, I've said it before, they got to do their part on the field, at least for these first couple of games. Listen, they got 2 out of 3. I still think they could have gotten that LAFC, but, they got 2 out of 3, and they can certainly build on all of these. And it's up to them as much as how they want to do. And again, now's the time. World Cup in Houston, first time ever, maybe the only time in our lifetimes. If it ain't now, I don't know what they're waiting for.
Great point, Victor. We talked about the on-field product. We talked about the attendance. We've given our opinion about the marketing side, but let's look at reality, Victor, which is the standings. You have to start looking at where the team is. Let's look a little bit about start with the East. And as you can see on your screen, Victor, it really is right now, no more undefeated teams in the East, but New York City, Nashville starting strong. And Miami already with a loss and a tie. Is it time to worry about Messi and company?
Yeah, well, I think New York City and Nashville are undefeated. I know this. The way MLS does it, they screw up this thing where it's win loss tie instead of win draw loss. So
yes, they are undefeated.
Those
I apologize.
Undefeated, and I think New York has been a bit of a surprise there. But I think it runs through Miami, right? So that's probably the team there to follow, and everybody else is chasing them.
Mm-hmm. And in the West, Victor, let's look at the West. Here, 2 undefeated teams, no ties. We need to clarify what undefeated means in my mind. 12 points, 4 matches. Vancouver playing great. They dismantled Portland the previous game. They keep going. 13 for or positive goal differential, 14 goals for, 1 against. I mean, Mueller's team on fire. This is really a strong team. And LAFC, who already visited Houston early in the season.
Yeah, by the way, this is the heavyweight conference. We've known that for years, and that's that again. But that's another reason why we always preach why the Dynamo should be more proactive. Because if you fall behind, these are the teams that you gotta compete against. And look, nobody remembers second place, right? But Vancouver was there in the MLS Cup final last year, and they might feel like they have unfinished business. They were also in the final of the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Obviously, they added Mueller after the fact. But yeah, I mean, they're one of the teams to beat. They just had a big victory against Minnesota.
6-0.
LAFC
man.
obviously has star power of their own with Sun and Buanga, and they're off to a great start. San Diego continues to be a bit of a surprise there for being an expansion team that continues to have success, and we'll see what they do this week with Toluca and the CONCACAF Champions Cup. That's the test I want to see them. I want to see if they're able to slay that dragon, even without Marcel Ruiz, who Mexico just lost to injury. Other than that, I mean, everybody else is kind of in part of the bunch, right? Again, we'll see what Minnesota turns out to be with James. Portland looked average the way they handled that game. They couldn't finish it against Houston. That was one that kind of was a little bit there on the platter there, the way it turned out, and they didn't put it away. Dallas, what are they? We'll find out because the Derby's coming up this week. Again, Salt Lake, Colorado, LA Galaxy, Austin. A lot of these teams are just kind of hovering around, but we'll see what they turn into the rest of the season.
Victor, how do you see the Texas teams? And you mentioned the Dallas Houston match coming up this weekend. First time we get to see the Houston facing one of the two rivals, but it's I think the quality of that those rivalries has diminished here in the relevancy relative to the table to the Western Conference is kind of disappearing, and they're middle of the pack right now. Is evident.
I don't think you feel the rivalries as much because I think these teams all transact with each other, and they're all friends with each other too. I'm saying like the heads of each of these clubs, right?
Sure.
Pat Onstad and Ben Olsen, probably friends there with Nico Esteves up in Austin, and maybe not as much with Eric Quill, but I mean, I think there's some certainly some just the way this league is. The rivalry isn't really felt there. It's kind of like, hey, you're MLS Dallas, you're MLS Austin. You're just another team in the league. And certainly with some of the transactions, we've seen players go back and forth so often between these clubs. Again, the fan base is also, I mean, Austin's has the biggest fan base out of all these three. And that's also because they're one of these newer MLS teams. But
the shine is wearing off in Austin, Victor. The
shine is wearing off. You don't get as many people going to the stadium. You're starting to, get some of those, hurdles that supporters groups in MLS go through, at least from what I hear. So, and again, the supporters culture in these three, I think you have smaller groups, and supporters groups that have lasted the test of time, certainly with Dallas and Houston. But are they growing? Are they getting bigger numbers? Are they getting, fans that are extending the legacy of these groups? We'll see. We'll see how many travel up to FC Dallas. And obviously they have a smaller capacity with the renovations they're doing to their stadium.
Yeah.
But again, and how much do players feel these derbies, right? How much do they truly want to go out there and win it? And, and not just to say it, I'm saying, where you kind of see, and not that you want it to get to a point where it's violence, right? But where you see a little bit of animosity, where you see a difference in a clásico as it's supposed to be.
Well, care and passion and relevancy, but no, not crossing a line to violence and or to insults and things of that nature. And Victor, you're reading my mind tonight. One of the questions I had was at the conclusion of the Dynamo victory over Portland, there was a genuine celebration from the players, fans. Some had started heading out. I saw them rush back in to see what all the commotion was about. And I could sense there was an energy there. However, I didn't actually sense the supporters groups, El Batallón, the Surge, were that vocal that evening. And I remember looking over and seeing them on the north side, their traditional space, their traditional perch, I'll use that term. And it didn't seem to me that was a massive turnout, as in comparing to LAFC match, right? So
that's what I'm saying. I mean, I think these groups are struggling for members. I think you see them have more in some games rather than others. And listen, I get that some members can't be out there every game. They probably watch from home. I mean, but what I'm saying is they've lost numbers over the years.
Why is that? Why is that, Victor? I mean, you have more of an insight certainly than I do to supporters groups. What is the relationship between the club and the supporter groups relative to, hey, we're going to get all in a bus and go up to Dallas? That's what's coming up next. Is there that type of organization? And forgive my ignorance, because I'm not part of the supporters group. Is that the club collaborating with? You said how the teams in Texas are kind of nice to each other. Is there an understanding that, hey guys, we're reserving these 1,000 tickets for you, and we're going to give you a break on them, and then we're going to give you a free hot dog so the guys from Austin can come? Is it that calculated? I don't know, and we can ask friends.
Well, there's a way sections in MLS, and I'm sure the club communicates with the supporters groups and says, there's so many tickets, and it's up to you to redistribute them, whatever.
Sure.
I would imagine supporters clubs are getting the buses. Sometimes the league sponsor, like a Heineken or something, will help out with that. But past that, I don't know how close they're working these days. Certainly, I think Batallón there had a bit of a disconnect with the front office last year, and that seems to be sorted out because we haven't really. I mean, we've seen them at the stadium this year.
Yeah.
But
and Victor, take me behind the scenes there, because I've often wondered: is it because there are demands on behalf of supporters groups? And look, you go back, and I'm trying to be objective in my questioning of this. Is that, hey, I've got a group of 300, 500 strong, and these are our demands. We want access. We want to be able to do this. Is it a negotiation like that? I remember a few years back, Victor.
Yeah.
There was a line crossed. There was a line crossed where there was extra security around the supporters groups, and the supporters groups, if I recall correctly, were offended by that. Is that what all this is about? You mentioned the word violence. None of us ever want to let it get to that point. Passion, yes. Emotion, absolutely. Caring and loving it and living it. But some of these groups, and I'm not saying in Houston, I don't have any evidence to that, Victor. Ultras in other countries cross lines that are criminal. That's not what I'm suggesting. That's not what I'm suggesting.
And they're criminal organizations in other countries.
They are.
I think when you dig into some of these across Latin America, I mean, these are big money operations.
Victor, I'm gonna interrupt you because I don't want any misunderstandings. That's not what I'm alleging about any supporter group. So I want to make that perfectly clear.
No, I mean I think that's what's different in MLS, or at least it seems like. But I almost have no doubt. I mean, it's a cleaner product in that sense. It's not.
Oh yeah.
Like in other countries where again, like I said, the big money operations, and you see, I mean, even just across the border here in Mexico. We've seen incidents of violence in these stadiums. That's why attendance is down in Liga MX, because it's, do families feel safe enough to go to some of these games? I think you don't have that problem in MLS. Now, there's been incidents over the years, of course. It's not all going to be perfect, and that's why I say I'm not condoning. I'm not preaching for that, but I think you want to see some of the friendly banter and some of the support and look. Part of this atmosphere at the stadium as well. I think they're I think for the club, it benefits them to work with some of these groups. I know there's certain lines that, shouldn't be crossed where, supporters groups aren't going to accept money for TIFOs, for example, or they want to keep certain things organic. But I think as a club, you can probably extend a hand in helping these groups grow, because ultimately you want to have an atmosphere. And ultimately, I would think these premium sections in the stadium are subsidizing so that it would be a cheaper ticket to be in the supporters section, to be bringing that energy. Listen, we can go on for hours here, because I'm of the belief that it was good in the beginning. Remember, they were right by the tunnel, Batallon and Texan Army, and you got that coming out of the tunnel. It was a bit more of a menacing environment. It's not that now. Canetti threw the supporters groups across the stadium and to the upper level, and now at least with that standing room section, it kind of filters down to the bottom. But I'll tell you, I'm a little bit disappointed when I see the broadcast of these games, and I kind of see, and I've seen it here in this Portland game. I really kind of thought about it a little more with the LAFC game, because I was thinking, man, if you're LAFC and how are you trying to make this sort of players like Son and Bouanga, I mean, they're going to be fine with some of these environments, some of these menacing environments. They played in the Premier League, they played in all these other
they've lived it,
countries, right? But I think, what is the Dynamo, or what are the fans doing to make this one of the more menacing environments in MLS? What an LAFC might have, what other teams around the league might have. And, I see supporters just standing there. I don't know if it's leadership in some of these supporters cultures. I don't know if it's that it's a lot of new members and we've lost some of the members of the past. I do think, certainly we've had some of the members, die off. I don't know if the legacy continues with some of these families. So I think all this stuff factors in. But again, when you look at the waves of orange that were there in the Robertson days, and it wasn't all rosy in the Robertson days. I'm not going like it was some perfect time, but it worked, right? At the time, there was some support. You saw the tailgates. And I think, part of that was lost coming to the new stadium. But
yes, it seemed more. Forgive me, Victor, again for interrupting you. I do that a lot. I apologize. It seemed more organic. That's the word I like to think about. It seemed less of, hey, this is what's. Let's check the box, and I don't mean the organization, both the supporter groups and the team, saying, here's. Where are our beating drums and our people that are making noise? Let's assign a section to them.
That's just Batallon. I mean, I don't think the Surge and Texan Army don't have instruments. So if Batallon's not there, there's no music, right?
Apparently not, right?
And that might not be everybody's cup of tea. I've heard the other side of the coin where it's like, oh, well, it should be like Europe where you're just chanting. Well, I think there's enough for everybody, because especially, Houston's a multicultural city. I think you have to have a little bit of everything. And I think it can be married and be a perfect mix. But certainly if you're talking about instruments, that's Batallon, and they're up in the top section. They don't get to be seen on TV unless the camera pans to them. So that's another thing. So I don't want to, but I remember, because I'm gonna peel the curtain here a little bit. I was in the Batallon section one time. So, I was told
as a participant,
all I was told is, hey, you got to be up there jumping for 90 minutes. You can come in here, you can eat, you can drink, whatever, but you got to bring in 90 minutes. And that's the kind of, when I look at this now and I think, I don't know, man. And I don't know if it's because of the way the Dynamo play and people are just kind of in awe. But to me, I think of, man, there should be people jumping. There should be more energy. And it's not to criticize, but I think it's, Victor, just like I say with the players, sometimes you got to bring it a little more. I think the fans have to bring it a little more. And I don't know how much of that is on the team to nurture, to have that type of environment, because I think they should. It benefits them as well. And that, with the dash too, I know it's a separate conversation, but and a work in progress, but I wish we could see it there too.
We'll talk about the dash shortly, by the way. So don't give up on that thought, Victor. I think the experience at Shell can and should, this is my opinion, should be different. There are many of us that are in different times of our lives. I get and maybe it's generational, I get the legal aging drink. I'm going to say 21 and older fans in their 20s who want to be out in the sun.
But it's a family environment too. You have kids up there drumming.
And you have the corporate environment as well. So and by the way, this is entertainment, and I get the revenue stream necessity, Victor. You can go for the club, Jameson Club, if I'm not mistaken. Someone's going to have to help me. They don't invite me there much, by the way. They don't let me in anymore. But we go to the Jameson
because you didn't buy any alcohol.
That's right. Well, I bought too much alcohol.
We're making money with this guy. Get him out of here.
What this guy? Yeah, he's preaching to drink water. We don't need that here. I'm kidding. But you have the corporate experience where literally you can bring in your clients, spend thousands of dollars on the catering side, have your private suite, and then the hey, I'm here because I've had a couple of drinks. I love it. I'm passionate. Every corner kick to me for my team is an opportunity. I'm on my feet, as you've said, for 90 minutes. The beauty of it, Victor, is that that's the way it should be. And in Houston, we're able to do that. In other countries, you get maybe the extremes where literally I wouldn't take my wife and children to a match in some stadiums in Mexico or in Argentina or in Croatia. I wouldn't show up. I wouldn't feel that I might get out of there without having some physical violence against me, literally, and I can defend that. There's a history of that. Then I've been to some sporting events, Victor, where it's so corporate. You literally have valet parking, and before you know it, you spend $5,000, and I don't know if it was worth it. So balance it, but the experience should be there. The different experiences should be there for what fans want, and I think we're close to that at Shell.
Yeah, and look, the freeway thing is going to help with that club section, that Jameson Club. They could probably have valet parking there, and look, it works. It works with the other teams too.
Yeah,
I think there's space for everything, but I think again, you have to have that balance, that perfect balance. You can't just have it be all one way or the other. So again, we'll see what it turns into, but I would like to see these groups. I know they want to grow, they want to have more members, and they certainly want to see more lifelong Dynamo fans. But I don't know if the demand is as high now. I think that's why I think this is another aspect of, listen, who cares if you get a big star? You brought a James Rodriguez here, for example. More Colombians come to the games. They want to be in supporters section. Maybe they fall in love with the team. They become lifelong members. I mean, that's where I say the star power can help you boost. Otherwise, it's a harder hill to climb. And again, that's why I say everything we talked about here at the start. The rest, if you don't have it, has to fall on the marketing, on the front office, and the work has to be put in to grow all these efforts, because that's the only way you're going to get more people in the building and more people invested in this team.
And Victor, I'll give myself the final word. And I think fans who are casual fans who don't know the Dynamo, associating with a player or two, regardless of who they are, how they market. Yeah, we mentioned 5 today that I think to me would be great ambassadors. But it's also getting them out there in front of the media, getting them out there in the community, and creating those bonds. So we will definitely keep talking a lot more about Houston Dynamo. Their next
I want to have one last thing real quick.
Yes.
There's different supporters groups, and the way I see it, it's like different strokes for different folks, right? The Batallon are more of the band. They have the noise, but it wasn't everybody's cup of tea. Right, nor was Texian Army, and I'm for a while there it looked like they were dying off, and I think it's that maybe they're trying to make a comeback here. If I were the Dynamo, I'd try to help them preserve that, because they're one of the original supporters groups. But that's where surge started to happen, right? Because one or the other wasn't getting it done, so they made their own group. There's also a tailgate group, right? Bandera Negra. And I think there could always be other, groups that spawn as well, depending on, again, the demand, if it is there. So I think there's a little bit for everybody, but I think overall, I mean, that's why they try to do this hustle town thing, right? To try to be, unfortunately, they weren't under the canopy there on the other end of the stadium where they could maybe be a little louder. They've made those into premium areas. But I think, yeah, if you're certainly going to throw them on the other side of the field and, help them out a little bit.
Fans, tell us about your experience at the match. Do you go for the Frou-Frou Suites where Victor Araiza hangs out? Or do you take your shirt off and
I don't know about that.
And get with El Batallón like Alex Parra? I think it's just the opposite, Victor. So
I hang out in that press box that some genius decided to put in the corner where you can't see anything. You can only see half of the field.
We'll save that grievance for another time, Victor.
Yeah.
And you may not be the only media person that's talking about that. Let's switch gears here and talk about the other team in Houston, the Houston Dash, that opened up their season away in beautiful San Diego. Victor, Fabrice Gautreau's team.
Damn near at the same time as the Dynamo game.
Yeah.
And, again, other than what we talk about on this podcast, I didn't hear much buzz about this start. It almost, and maybe part of it that played into it was because they were away, but I didn't feel as much of a buildup, but at least they got the result that they needed. So that at least helps.
Victor, we talk about the identity, not on the field necessarily, but how soccer is marketed. And I'm going to get into promotion and relegation here in a few minutes. You're right. Being away did not help. Being in a very crowded moment in Houston sports with the Dynamo playing almost simultaneously at Shell, rodeo going on, World Baseball Classic, the Rockets in season. There are so many things happening. Where did the Dash fall into this, and the result, Victor, on the field, it tends to almost be secondary. The players work hard, they prepare, they travel. They've been looking for this start of the season, a positive start, 3 points away at San Diego. They come home this weekend to face Boston, a new franchise in Boston Legacy, a new franchise in the NWSL. How was that story told, and how can that story break through the noise to rise to getting attention, translating to following, translating to attendance at the stadium? We're not magicians. These are suggestions. What can be done to look? I love the women's sport. We have covered the Dash, Victor, for years as a passion. But how does this get to the next level? And let's leave aside whether or not, I would suggest for now, aside whether or not the team is for sale, will be sold, not sold. The season's here. It started, 3 points for Houston. Can the team build on this and try to get Shell Energy Stadium full?
Absolutely. No, and that's the thing too. I mean, so they got a victory here. We'll see how they scored. Man, there should be a build-up this week to fill that place up, right? Get as many people as you can there for the opening game.
Yeah.
That's another thing that I was sort of disappointed with the Dynamo, where, I mean, again, in previous years, it'd be an automatic sellout. You weren't waiting till the last minute to see how many people would file in. Certainly the Dash have a longer way to go because I don't think they've ever... I've been there. They've never been sold out. They can say that for that playoff game.
There was one playoff game that was pretty close, Victor. That was a cool evening.
I'm not going to poo-poo on it, but that if anybody's calling it a sellout, that's not true. Well, I mean, it wasn't.
No poo-pooing. No poo-pooing.
So, but again, I mean, so this is where I say, I mean, part of the responsibility is the team on the field, right? You got to get the results. You can't ask people to come here. I mean, if you don't got it together on the field. And this is where it was a bit of a pleasant surprise. However you got the victory, you got it. Great start, and now you can try to build on that. This is where the machine has to get behind the marketing arm. And I'll tell you, I'll confess, I got to do a little bit more research into some of the new players and new faces. What do they bring into the table? How is this team built? I'd like to find it, more from the team, but I think same thing. They have to break through the noise It's not as easy to find some of these stories, and part of it is we're trying to tell some of these, but we're not the only media outlets in town. There's other outlets that where you can hear some of this other stories, and I don't know if it's getting out that way either. But again, we know a few of the players so far. This was a good victory, and let's hope they can build this into a good season. But I mean, what good is it going to be if they make the playoffs if this doesn't build into something bigger, into something larger?
And look, I have to mention, Victor, the business side of this. We've discussed this on the podcast here, the team being for sale, and I imagine, I don't know this, looking from the outside to the financial piece of this. There's a lot of investment that goes into owning this team, the costs that go into player acquisition, facilities, travel, staff, etc.
Well, and it's a similar situation to the Dynamo because this is a team that it's already established. They don't have the boost of a Boston or a Denver, who are the new teams in the league, right? And they're the big stories on opening weekend. Certainly Boston played at home. I think they drew like 30,000 is a number going around.
Yeah.
Denver's already sold like 50,000 tickets for their game in a couple of weeks at home at Invesco. Well, I guess it's not Invesco anymore. Whatever it's called at Mile High, the big stadium where the Broncos play. But again, so it's a little bit more complicated because it feels like it's almost like a reboot, right? And you've already had somewhat of a reboot there with the rebrand with the Houston Dash. But yeah, I mean, this is why it needs to kind of be, shown as a different effort. This is a different Houston Dash, right? And this is also where, again, years and years of not making the playoffs sort of hurt the team because whether it's, Guttrell's fault or not as the head coach, he's got no control over what happened before him. But he's got to deal with the baggage that came before him because when you try to sell that story, it's, well, how are you different than the previous years, right? And it can get tiring maybe for them to try to always, change the narrative, or I don't know if they feel slighted. But I think certainly, it has to be a constant effort to change people's minds. I always go to it sort of a customer service approach, right? You got to be friendly, open to everybody. Don't get insulted if some people don't know you exist or your team exists. And again, grow it each and every day, even if it's one person at a time.
Victor, you mentioned something. I think I'm a firm believer that both Angela and Pat on the women's and men's side, respectively, are realists when it comes to soccer's place in the Houston sports marketplace. I don't think there is this idea that we're the NFL and the Texans, that literally, and I've told this story many times, friends, where people initially, and even today, I believe, pay for the right to get tickets, seat licenses, where I'm paying to have the opportunity to pay more to get real seats, but I'm just paying for that opportunity, which sounds amazing, but it tells you where the NFL is. I think this franchise, Victor, and I'm not defending or indicting. I think this is subjective view. They realize, what, we've got to get out there. We've got work to do. And I think that's incumbent, Victor, on anyone who cares about the sport. And I point to you, Victor. You care about these franchises. That's why I know you make certain comments because you want better for the Dash. You want better for the Dynamo. You're passionate about this. You've lived it. Maybe often, and I don't mean to speak for you, you're disappointed that the franchise itself doesn't have that kind of passion in what they're doing. That's my take on the way you and others are. But Victor, I think this is a collective effort to say, look, yeah, we've got a great entertainment product. Let me show you these athletes. Let me show you their stories. Let's talk about this, and then come to Shell and live it and experience it. Versus thinking that there's something that magically is going to come just because. it's not that easy, Victor. And I think we've seen
Yeah,
that over the years.
and listen, the way this has been, and it's happened for both clubs. You sort of get lulled into a comfort zone, and that's why, I think you got to pull this team out of that. You got to inject some different energy into this team. That's why I also say, I mean, I don't think they have a dedicated staff. I would like to see them have be their own operation. It doesn't have to necessarily be any ownership. I think as long as, they have enough manpower or women power, however we want to say it these days.
Person power, Victor.
But again, the strength behind being a professional franchise, because you see some of these other teams around the league, and I say it for the league as a whole as well. Look, I see, and I know the commissioner has to come out and do the rah-rah speech and talk about, we got the best players in the best league. And listen, I also think some of it's got to be rah-rah, but some of it, you also got to be humble and know what your league is, and know that you're not getting it done on certain fronts, and not act like it's all roses. Some markets, some expansion markets are there. The values are up, but you got other markets that need the help, that need some star power. I don't have all the solutions, but again, it's supposed to be, and I go back to it. It's not all money. I think you need a balance of everything. San Diego just made headlines for getting a player, and look, this is how important it is to that it's out of my mind, because again, that's how effective their marketing is. Somebody like me who covers the sport, who probably should know that name like a household name. Now I drown it out almost, because you hear so much of this. You don't hear enough genuineness. You don't hear enough authenticity in some of these teams and some of these efforts. And I think that's why some of these grassroots efforts that you're seeing with Bay FC, with Denver, now with Boston, and a lot of it is the new team, the new team smell, right? But that's what Portland has built, what Kansas City has built. I mean, that's kind of what we'd like to see, at least an effort towards that in Houston.
Victor, I think this is a good segue, a good way to transition to promotion and relegation. Here's my fear, Victor, and I talked about this in our last podcast. We've been focusing, friends, on MLS. We've been focusing on NWSL, the Dynamo and the Dash teams that are based here in our city of Houston. Different markets have different stories. I have no doubt about that. But Victor, my concern is this, that in this World Cup year, there are a myriad of groups at all levels, from a Division I professional to the local youth recreational league, that see the World Cup and want some kind of attachment to that event. Whether it's direct and and sponsors are paying for the rights to be there, whether it's as a reference to the World Cup, to the big soccer event. Everybody, many people, want to be associated with it. My fear is, and we're already seeing it in the USL, that the proliferation of what's called professional soccer, Victor, is growing. I'm going to talk about a story that affects youth soccer, and I believe it could be a game changer for many youth leagues in South Texas, in the Houston area, throughout the United States. But let's focus on the professional side, defining what professional is, number one. And my fear is, Victor, that the proliferation of teams is going to lead to the concept of, okay, now we have this pyramid. People love to have a pyramid of what's up, what's down, who's at the top, who's at the bottom. And the reality of many of these professional leagues, Victor, and I've lived it in previous incarnations of professional soccer in the United States, is that unless you have a protected league like MLS, okay, where there's not relegation, nor for that business do I believe there should be, the dream of promotion and relegation is a fantasy world. I think it's great, Victor, to think about it. I think it's romantic to think about, okay, my buddies and I who are coming from Amarillo, Texas, and I love Amarillo, Texas, are going to win from the 4th Division, and in 4 years we're going to be playing against Messi at our Amarillo Stadium with 12,000 people. That's not reality. There's no world, Victor, where that in the United States, where that happens.
Well, not now, not the way things are set up now.
Nor can it be, Victor. It doesn't make any sense. And my age will show this, that an owner in Miami, in Houston, who is, by the way, an owner of the league, a single entity, the MLS is one big business. You buy into that business via the franchise. That they would let someone from the outside with another organization and another structure come into the league. That doesn't make sense for either party. And that there'd be guarantees, or that for whatever reason, Miami one day with the new construction, everything they built is third division compared to Amarillo. The problem is, I don't think the U.S. Soccer Federation, Victor, is selling that reality. In the United States, anything is possible, friends, but I don't believe that will ever happen. And I believe many leagues, including the USL, I'm looking at this is my opinion, are selling that they're really second and third and fourth division USL teams who believe that one day they're going to be playing against the MLS teams and competing against them. That would destroy the MLS, and it would destroy, thus, the first division. It doesn't make sense. I think it's romantic. I think it's wonderful to dream about it, Victor. Am I wrong to think that way? I don't think that happens in our lifetime in the United States in the sport, and I think the sport is better for it, because then there would be no safety net for any of this. Literally, the sport would implode. I don't think it's sane. Yeah. I don't think it makes sense. And maybe I'm being way too of an old man and not believing in what this could be. I don't want to break anybody's dreams, but that's my take on it, Victor. Am I wrong? Slap me around,
no,
Victor.
I think you're right, because the problem here is, it's not just the concept of promotion relegation. I think it's a concept of having an open system. And listen, just like we hear pay to play for
youth
players,
soccer. Yep.
It's pay to play for clubs.
Yep.
I think even now the USL, I mean, it ain't a cheap ticket, right? It's going to set you back a few, I don't know how much, upwards of 20 grand. That somebody can correct us if they have knowledge. So it's from a financial standpoint, it's like those teams in the 80s and the 60s. I mean, it's you're losing money. You're doing it for the passion of the sport, that's only going to go so far if you can't find profit, because at the end you have to, or at least you have to at least find a way to come even, right?
Break even, yeah.
So, but I don't, or you have a benefactor that's going to keep you in business for a long time. I mean, but I don't know if we have many of those around the country. That's why I don't know if this is going to be a success here with the USL, this promotion relegation plan they have, because it's still, it's still a big check you have to write to get a club into that league. And it doesn't necessarily start from the bottom either, right? It's not like there's a 10th division in the U.S. soccer system that eventually you jump into the USL and then you jump into MLS. So, I don't think it's going to happen. And, that's why it makes it a little bit more difficult for when we talk about these MLS teams, because there isn't any other than between themselves, there isn't any other competition. There isn't the possibility of a team in Houston to exist and rival the Dynamo and say, listen, hey, that other club over there, they're getting it done. They got the grassroots. They're making the connection. They're getting 15,000 people, 20,000 people to their games. It's not going to happen.
Victor, in Houston, I don't see that. If an established franchise like the Houston Dynamo, 2 decades in, is not consistently selling out a soccer-specific stadium, who the heck am I? I don't want to pop anybody's bubble, but I don't see a men's professional team rivaling that and somehow getting it right in the suburbs, getting it right in the inner city, getting it right to compete at that level without spending a lot of money. Yeah, maybe Bill Gates comes in,
and we've seen all the examples. We've seen all these clubs that have tried. There's Dynamo too. They got to give their tickets away because people won't buy them, right? And they're supposed to be in that next. And I know it's not directly a second division, but that's the quality, the level below there,
yeah, exactly.
Right? And I mean that's and if you would put that team in Pearland or College Station or wherever, we've seen that example happen as well. We've seen the example of down in RGV. It doesn't work. Even with the NBA, I don't know if it necessarily works. So I think, again, it's what we have in the United States. That's why I always go back to being authentic and being genuine and making those connections and building those connections. And I think in certain environments, you've seen it in certain cities that you can have it where it works. It's just not, we just don't see it here.
Victor, and I go back to my example of Amarillo, and I love Amarillo, Pampa, Texas, close by. But in Amarillo, if you have a team that's modest and can think about getting 5,000 people because it's the only show in town, I get that. But in Houston, to think about a second or third or fourth division men's or women's team that's actually breaking even, I would like to see that. I would support that. I genuinely would. But there are so many factors that make that so difficult. I don't want to say impossible. Anything, my friends, is possible within reason. I'll never play in the NBA because I have no ability. I'm short, and there's no way that can happen. I've ruled that one out, Victor.
But some of that is, and again, we don't have enough time, I'm sure, on this show. But a lot of this is the economics behind it.
Sure.
Do you have money to pay players? How much is your budget? Is a player going to buy themselves on the team? Right. I mean, all these things. What is it that you can truly aspire to if other than the Open Cup? Which, by the way, we have the ASC New Stars taking on San Antonio this week. So that's a local story there.
A huge local story, yeah.
And so, if they advance and maybe they'll get some more attention. But again, is that a team that locally is making waves? Have people heard about and they've been around for a long time, but I'm saying, have people heard about them before?
Victor, I played against some of their veterans, a great group, but also, I'll be honest with you, I don't pretend to know the insights of that club, but it's done for the love. It's done for staying in shape, being around friends socially that you enjoy. Yeah. And by the way, a really good level of soccer. But I don't think there's an ownership group behind that saying, hey, how much money did I make this year? It's, hey, how can we hang out with each other and maybe have a beer afterwards and enjoy the sport? Nothing wrong with that. That's beautiful.
And this is where I also see, if there's no competition like there is in other countries because of promotion relegation, you can have a rival in your same city, even if you're in first division and they're in the third division, right? Then why can't we see this pyramid actually work in the sense of, why aren't the Dynamo congratulating AAC New Stars for being in the tournament? Why aren't they expressing support? And if they end up facing themselves, and then let it be a friendly thing, right? It's not a direct competition because they're never going to be in first division. All these efforts, I think, can help grow the game, maybe we'll see them one day.
Yeah, or have them have their U.S. Open Cup game played right before or right after the Dynamo game as a gesture. The stadium's already open. I get. Believe me, I know the costs associated with leasing stadiums, and it's huge. But maybe this is one way. Anyway, a lot to talk about, Victor. Mr. Producer's telling us we got to keep moving. So, but friends, what do you think about promotion relegation? Are we way off? Is there something we're missing that maybe is the magic potion, the approach to making this be successful in the United States and in particular in Houston? Victor, there's another story that's changing the landscape. This, my friends, I think is going to be a story that has a lot of legs on the youth side. It's been recently announced, just in the last couple of days, that U.S. club soccer and U.S. youth soccer are announcing a new competition. Literally, maybe for now it's a placeholder called New Comp. And it talks about
great name.
It's a placeholder for now. It's like the Soccer Tejas podcast.
Yeah.
Very inventive.
It's at least the name of the website in our case.
Exactly.
New comp.
So
All right,
this will be starting this fall. And Victor, this year youth soccer is changing several things. One of them is going back to the split year when it comes to age groups, something that parents are going to have to deal with. And then this new comp, what it's called for now is a placeholder. Where the process is now, and friends, we'll talk more about this as we get more information, is that they've named now the league operators in the United States. And in particular, for those of you that follow youth soccer, the league operator, so the entity that will run the league, will be under the South Texas Champions League. It's one of the local leagues. And there's still a lot of questions. Who will participate? How will they participate? Where will this lead relative to other competitions? So there's still a lot of questions about where this goes. And if this is a team-based competition, is that different than a club-based competition? What happens to the brands? Many of us talk about the alphabet soup, Victor, in youth soccer, ECNL, the GA, MLS Next. There's all these different leagues that are all vying for the business of youth soccer. That's, I think, a real statement. That's what this is about. And now U.S. Soccer guiding U.S. Club Soccer, which is one entity, and U.S. Youth Soccer, which is another, that had been competing to come together. What does that mean? Who leads it? How is it structured? There's a lot of questions that are coming, and hopefully in the next weeks and months to come, we'll be able to talk to some of the protagonists about how this is being structured. Victor, in general terms, youth soccer is very splintered. Youth soccer has many approaches to what's right, to the pathway, to what parents aspire to do, whether it's getting to college, whether it's becoming a professional. The landscape, Victor, is shifting. This also applies to college soccer. For many, college soccer is going to become a second division. Talk about putting that into the mix, into promotion and relegation. How can the team from Amarillo, that's fourth division, one day be playing against the Texas A&M Aggie team? That's a collegiate team. That's also now a second division team. There's so many ways. What drives all this, Victor? I think it's the ambition to be the top, the ambition to be in that pyramid, in that structure. It's still too early, in my opinion, Victor, to know where this goes exactly. But any thoughts, Victor, about the youth side and some of these movements that are just being recently announced?
Yeah, wait and see for me. But again, another league, another change. This is exactly what we need now, right? I mean, and every couple of years it seems like there's something new. It's the new thing. And I think that's part of the problem. There isn't any set traditions or a long-standing system. And I think the reason why MLS and NWSL are sort of, gaining some ground now is because they've been established. They have some history. They're growing now where, I think, if these were new leagues starting up, right? If those leagues had folded and we had to have some new ones because of the World Cup coming this summer, what have you, again, it'd be a tough sell. They'd have to start again from zero. And that's where I see this. I think these things create more confusion. Hopefully this is the good one and it's here to stay. But, if in another 5 years we're going to have a new thing, and what does it matter?
And Victor, I think you're right on. The changes here, I think, initially they're coming from the right place and trying to unite us and bring us together. I'm like you, Victor. I have a lot more questions than answers about what happens in 3 years, what happens in 4 years, what we had in place 5 years ago versus 10 years ago. And the landscape continues changing. Friends that are watching the podcast, you're kind of getting an overview of the different districts and then the why of this. And I think this is important. It reads that by aligning levels of play and competition standards, the new league pathway is designed to reduce unnecessary travel and cost while improving access to meaningful, high-quality matches. The result is a simpler, more efficient structure that improves the participant experience. I think that remains to be seen, remains for the participant to talk to us about their experience. But by having a pyramid, Victor, and naming that this is the way to go up and go down, to me it's clear that you're also in some way anointing who the winning or successful leagues will be versus those that aren't. The ambition from so many families and parents is how can I get involved? What is best for my child? How am I going to get more exposure? And here in South Texas, there are two divisions, if you will, South Texas and North Texas, and the operators that have been recently named that are going to be running these leagues. So there'll be a lot more there, friends, in the next couple of weeks and months to come, and we'll keep you abreast of it. But Victor, I'm curious to see where it goes and what it brings. But I'll give you the last word, Victor. I think you've said it all, to be honest with you. Something new, how long will it last? And will it be successful? Remains to be seen.
Yeah, if it's more regional, I mean, in theory, it sounds good. Is it going to work? Is it going to remain that way? Is the game going to be more accessible? Because I think part of the reasons for the travel is the expenses that come with it.
Absolutely.
But I mean, if it's still expensive to go into some of these tournaments, it's still not going to be open to everyone. I don't know. Again, we'd have to find out more details. What are the expenses that come to these teams, et cetera. But again, I'm not thrilled about another change. I think, I don't know the reason. I'm sure because Texas is huge. That's part of the reason why it's North Texas, South Texas. But I mean, now you got New Mexico, West Texas with New Mexico, and I get it. I know Texas is a big state.
Yeah.
But it's also one state. I've never understood that part of it, of just dividing it up for. But whatever. We can be here all day if you let me rant on about this.
So, friends, what do you think? If you're aware in the youth environment of this change, are you for it? Are you against it? And we will have more information here about it as we discover it. Again, for full disclosure, I'm also involved in youth soccer, and I have many questions about what might be best for the club that I'm with, SG1 Soccer Club, or the leagues that we're in, and the competitions and the approach. And as Victor just mentioned, how accessible will it be? Does this negate current leagues, other current leagues? Does it negate tournaments? Is it take the place of? A lot of work to be done yet, but I think it's something that's going to shift the landscape of youth soccer in the United States. So be aware and be ready for that one. Victor, we've got to go, but I guess before we go, we traditionally close with the What's on Our Mind segment. So Victor, if you give me 2 more seconds to get to the right screen, what's on your mind as we close out the latest podcast?
Yeah, look, it's Open Cup season, so I'll be trying to stay on some of these games, especially, again, there's special interest there with New Stars visiting San Antonio FC. The day right after, I think we have a bit of another Texas derby, if we can call it that, or at least Texas rivalry in the Open Cup at the lower levels. El Paso's visiting Laredo Heat. So I'm interested to see some of these teams in the spotlight and see what they do in the Open Cup and see what other matchups we get here regionally. When you talk about regionally, we just talked about with this new comp, right? This new competition.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things the Open Cup, I think, did well is regionalize a lot of these matchups. And I think it's drawn more interest, and certainly there's more things the U.S. Open Cup can better as well. But this is why also regional action is so good, because it creates, natural rivalries, if we can call them that, from teams that even though Texas is a huge state, you can see a team from Houston and a team from San Antonio being a regional thing.
That's what's on Victor's mind. U.S. Open Cup, by the way, huge, important tradition in the United States. Victor, the Dallas Cup, by the way, also coming up soon in the Dallas area. I was fortunate enough to have played there years ago in the 80s. Let's put it that way. That competition continues to grow, and with very high quality teams, women's division, girls division as well. So if you happen to be in the Dallas area to check out the Dallas Cup, please do so. It's definitely worth it. Victor, as we wrap up this latest edition of the Soccer Tejas, let me get it right, the Soccer Tejas podcast, I wanted to talk a little bit about the youth landscape. Victor, my hope we talked about the new comp, the coming together of U.S. club soccer and U.S. youth soccer. I see it as an opportunity. Are there questions? Absolutely. Are there doubts? Of course. Will there be clubs and teams that are uncertain about what it means and how it's going to translate to maybe improve youth soccer in let's say South Texas in the Houston area? We don't know yet. It remains to be seen. What I do hope, Victor, is that this gives us an opportunity to come together and at least have more in common than separates us as youth clubs, as youth leagues, and a way to be, if the word is even applicable here, fair in our approach to youth soccer. This business, which youth soccer now is, has changed over the years. It's no longer a space reserved for only fun. It's business, it's leagues, it's competition, it's facilities, it's many aspects that need to be addressed. And I think our governing body, U.S. Soccer, is attempting something that might have merit. I don't know that yet. We don't know that yet. I hope that the powers that be will listen also to participants, will listen to families, will listen to teams, will listen to clubs, and make adjustments accordingly. This could also go very wrong if it's not handled right. If the leadership in place, those anointed with running the leagues, aren't really in touch with the majority of the soccer playing community. But I do see it as an opportunity, and I think it could change the landscape one way or another, hopefully for better and hopefully to improve the experience for all of us. So, Victor, that's kind of what's on my mind here as we wrap up the latest edition, Victor, of the Soccer Tejas podcast. Victor, we got to go. They're kicking us out. Any last words, please?
Let's get out of here. No, let's again in this Texas rivalry. It's kind of fitting we get Houston FC Dallas at the end of the week. So we'll see what that game leaves us.
Victor, it's always great to be with you. Thank you for being part of this podcast. Also, thank you to all of our production crew. Half of them have fallen asleep, so we appreciate them still trying to stay with us.
And get out to the Dash opener, by the way.
Yes, this weekend against Boston. On behalf of all of us, I'm Alex Parra. Thanks for joining us, and we invite you to come back and continue being part of what we call the Soccer Tejas podcast. Until next time.